Council meeting of February 18th, 2025 is called to order. And we should start with roll call, please.
Councilmember Bristow? Here. Councilmember Brenny?
Here.
Councilmember Badami?
Here.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Here.
Mayor Hudas?
Here. This council meeting follows a closed session. And does the town attorney want to say anything about the scheduling of what's happening tonight?
Yes, the town council voted to continue the discussion of agenda items 2 and 3 to after tonight's regular meeting.
Okay, and do you want to say anything about item 1 now or later on?
I'll report that under closed session report at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will conduct the pledge, so please join me. Thank you, and I will put out another plea for young pledge leaders to join us. So if you know folks who would like to join us on the dais to lead the pledge, please send them our way. The next item is consent items, items 1 through 11. And first ask if any council members have questions on the consent items or wanted to pull any items. I had a comment on item 11, which is the strategic priorities. I don't want to pull it. I appreciate the quick turnaround of the priorities that are delineated in item number 11. I think it reflects what we covered last time, but I also wanted to let the public know that that's not the end of the process and that we will be scheduling at a future time a more in-depth discussion of the 3 highest priorities and also a discussion about tactical priorities that the town may have. We don't have it on the agenda yet, but it's coming, and so this is a great start. So would anyone like to make a motion, the public comment on consent items? Do we have anyone in public? We do, on consent, okay. I have one card. It says item 11, though. That doesn't look right. Yeah, item 11 of consent. So Gus, who?
Strategy comes with timing. Timing is the most important part of strategy. And the priority here that I've been pushing for a long time is the sports, 3 sports, because this is in 2026, basketball, football, and soccer are to be played. And it's something that should be, that I know a lot of people that I played college football and soccer. And I know a lot of people that would want to party and have, like the weeks before. And I think that you guys that should be in the priority of opportunity at this time. And we just set aside, because we can I think everybody in the community can make some money if you had a week, you close off a street or something like that. And because both the football, you get 2 cities coming in and they're to be spending money, and there'll be places that you want to try to say, hey, we're a small town, we're friendly, stay here, shop here, eat here, go to the beach, stop back here, Airbnb. Same with countries of soccer. I have a lot more ideas with that, but if we invest now or set some time, something aside, we can recoup, and it wouldn't be that hard to, get a bank account going and stuff like that for each, the 3 different basketball, baseball. I mean, that's what I'm trying to.
Thank you. Thanks for coming up on this one. Any other comments online for number 11 or for any of the consent items?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Any comments, council members? Want to make a motion? Councilmember Risto.
Thank you. I move to approve consent items 1 through 11.
Second.
Okay. Second. Comments? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes. So we will now move on to verbal communications. And so I have 2 cards here, and let's see. Let's take Gus Hu on verbal communications. And then I have one other card for Michael Kane.
Censorship. I seem to be fighting with you guys a lot of times, and I apologize. But one of the things that I most want to bring up is at this time, because of the lawsuits and stuff like that, and the protest. I gave you flyers, and Mr. 666. This is a Bible verse, and I think that we shouldn't be teaching our children. What's happening was prophesized in the Bible, and so what's online and stuff like that. They're saying the beast is the United States, and a lot of we're alienating ourselves to this, and we shouldn't be. We should. Each person shouldn't have to be told to represent, salute this flag. We should be protesting and maybe turning left or kneeling or whatever, just to go against government. I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to point that out, that I don't think we should be trying to get children up here to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Another thing was water bills are coming up. I've talked to them today, and they called me, and they wanted what's happening with our situation is we have an inch line. We've been trying to get it down to a 3/4 inch line. They put smart meters in. I wanted a 3/4 inch smart meter, but they say no, they can't do that. They just want their money, and it's just a racket. And I think that the community we can get the community behind us and do what like Santa Clara did, and basically, what's happening is, it should be like a nonprofit more than they're just a greedy company. And I'm planning on suing them. And and I would list you guys, because you're not doing enough to protect, the water bill, this big giant water bill coming up, and also like censorship, that I can't bring up some stuff on Trump and our Mr. 666, and then also Lynn Avenue. I think it's still unsafe. I have some ideas on that, but we need that sooner than later. We don't need to wait years and years and years, because I heard years ago that they've been trying to put speed bumps in there, and there's problems because of the size of the lane. And you guys might not know that, but other people have known that for years.
Again, thank you. And I wanted, you've covered a number of issues, and I wanted to say that some of those issues are ones that resonate with other residents in town, and particularly the concerns about the water. And so I will put your comments together with others that I've received in thinking about whether we should put something on the agenda
Yeah, these-
about the water.
There's 5, I got steel on these, and I'm not supposed to spend more than $25. And, but these are like 2 cent, aftermarket. But there are 5 dozen roses, and I wanted to give them, because I'm fighting with you, and I don't want to fight.
Yeah.
But it's something that I, this is for you guys. Each one of you get a dozen roses.
Thank you.
They're like I said, they're steel. They're two. Maybe you get 6 cents.
So the next speaker is Michael Kane. I have a question for the town attorney. So I have a couple of cards that are on verbal communications regarding lawsuits. Are those appropriate for the comments for tonight?
If they're related to the Lindley Hogan lawsuit, the verbal communication for that was taken prior to the closed session. And so it would not be
So they'd have to
appropriate.
be general comments, not specific to that lawsuit.
That's correct.
Okay. That makes sense, Mr. Kane.
No, I don't know how to get around that. I didn't know there was a prior hearing, and I'm very concerned about this. May I make comments in any event?
The comments on that were taken prior to the closed session, and that meeting was agendized. There was an agenda posted.
And as I said, I didn't know about it. So
If your comments were general comments about lawsuits, that would be appropriate, I believe, but not about that specific case.
I'll try to generalize them real quick. My name is Michael Kane. I've been in town about 45 years. Served on the boards for the Chamber, the hospital, Rotary. I've been on town commissions and currently serve on a town commission. I wish to express my strong support for the town providing defense for any town council person named in a lawsuit for things they did in service to the town. All of you are hardworking, dedicated people who devote an enormous amount of time to make our community a better place. As such, you deserve full protection in these matters. The town does not stand by its elected officials when they are so targeted. It's such a dangerous precedent, one that discourages civic participation. It chills free expression and undermines the ability of future leaders to serve without fear of personal financial ruin. No one should be deterred from public service because of the threat of costly litigation that arises from their role as an elected representative. Council members cannot effectively function in the interest of the town and on behalf of all constituents if they fear they might be sued and left with no support or assistance by the town that they serve. We must protect them, all of them, so they can do their jobs. I urge council to reaffirm its commitment to supporting those who are attacked by members of the community with a lawsuit. I'm not an attorney, nor do I understand the applicable rules herein, but I would not oppose the creation of a defense fund, a public defense fund, if it came to that. And I would support it, and I would participate. I would also support and assist any appropriate countersuits. Thank you. I hope that was general enough.
Thank you. Noah Sklar? Well, I only have one other card. Actually, I finished the cards on this, so, yep.
Hi, so I'm Noah Sklar. I live in Los Gatos. How many years? 30 years. And down on Oka Road, Mozart, past the JCC. About a month or two, I was walking on Oka, enjoying the beautiful orchards, which are the last lungs of this town, the last piece of orchard available in this town. And I saw a sign for development, proposed development for a whole, basically a city within a city. So my heart sank. I called my husband. I said, Avi, we're leaving. We're moving. This town is now, it's not quaint. It's losing its character. It's turning into a Sunnyvale. He said, okay, let's put the house on the market. I said, okay, let's figure out first. I love Los Gatos. Let's see what we can do. So all the neighbors are concerned, beyond concerned, depressed. First of all, this area was zoned 8 years ago by the town council, was for single homes, 13 homes. I understand this is not realistic anymore. We understand the need for housing, but it's proposed 140, 138 or 140 homes on these orchards, townhouse, apartments, 3-story high. Needless to say how ugly it's going to be, how it's going to change this town. But more than that, this is a one way in, one way out. This is a risk factor. If there's a case of an earthquake, if the JCC gets threats by bombs, which happened in past, and we were told to stay put, we couldn't leave in and out. My husband is a OBGYN. He has to run to deliver a woman. What are we going to do when all these cars are going to come? And I'll tell you how many. We're going to have 1,380 additional car trips. And I'm sure you drive on Oka and Lark, and you probably cuss inside yourselves and say, this traffic is horrendous. So now imagine 140 on these beautiful orchards, additional homes. It's just unrealistic. So we have the safety. If we're going to get us neighbors at the end, and also Bonneview, the Taylor area, are we going to get isolated in case if there's emergency, ambulance, earthquake? Number two, the traffic is going to be horrendous on Lark. It's going to affect not only us, but all of you. On top of that, the construction is going to be insane. What I'm describing here is not theoretical. This is things that happen and are happening. So basically, please don't allow this to happen. Zone it for less homes. Third of that.
Thank you very much.
Very generous of me to say third.
Yeah, thank you. And I have another card, Ty Hawk.
Hello, I'm Ty Hawk. I'm also speaking on the Oka Road development. There's about 75 homes back there, and both the JCC and the Swim and Racket Club are there. And like the previous speaker was mentioning, there's only one way in and out of there. And right now, at times, we have the JCC has a school there, and there's pickup, and the traffic all backs up as these kids are being picked up or dropped off at certain times. The lights don't adjust for any of this, and it creates just lines of blockage on this road. We also have swim meets occasionally in the summer times, which creates also another jam on the road. And like Noah, the previous speaker, I just want to emphasize the congestion and emergency situations that could happen. And I don't see how you develop that for many more homes, a few maybe, but it just doesn't seem to work now. So I don't see how they're going to adjust the lights or widen the roads or, create another way in and out. Please look at it and don't allow this development to go through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next card I have is Lynn Showalter, and then I have another card with no name on it. Do we allow anonymous speakers?
Yes.
Hello, my name's Lynn Showalter, and thank you guys for your service to our community. I love Los Gatos. I've lived here for 43 years. I've raised 5 children here, and I now have 5 grandchildren that are also in Los Gatos. I do live off of Lark Avenue, and what my main concern is not just the development that they're proposing off of Oka, but it's just Los Gatos in general. It's University Avenue, it's Highland Avenue, it's where Ace Hardware is. These high-rise office buildings that are being proposed is very concerning to me. I do love the small town effect. I understand growth. I understand what the government is asking all the small communities to do, but at the same time, I have a lot of concerns about our schools. One of the developers, the realtors, they advertise highly rated Los Gatos schools. They're impacted. I have a granddaughter that has to be brought up to Lexington School because there's no room for her down in town, even though her siblings go to Dave's Avenue. And that's a problem. Where are these kids that are in these high-density, multifamily homes that are being proposed? Where are they going to be educated? And that's a big concern for me. When you look at Lark Avenue, as they've said, there's one way in, one way out of Oka. It's a half-a-mile radius from Los Gatos Boulevard to Winchester. There's already 5 traffic lights on Lark Avenue. And we have Netflix, we have Bay Club, we have businesses. I don't think that we can really handle more traffic. I'm a retired registered nurse. I did a lot of transports with AMR in our community, and that's a concern for me. I know our police department is understaffed. How are they going to protect all these additional people coming into Los Gatos? Again, I understand growth, I appreciate it, but I really ask you guys to look at Los Gatos. What are we doing to our community, and what's best for the residents that live here? Thank you.
Thank you. I have a card that doesn't have a name. If you recognize this card, you're welcome to come forward and speak anonymously if you wish. Any taker. It says Oka Development on it. Okay. I'll move on. The next one is John Proverbs.
Good evening. I've never been to one of these before, and I've never been present at any one of these before, so I have no idea how I'm supposed to proceed or follow any protocol. But I would like to let you know I'm John Proverbs. I live on Mozart, on the end of Oka Lane. I've lived there for about 11 years. Before that, I used to live up by the La Rinconada on Eastview, so I'm quite familiar with this area. And the traffic congestion down there has just ramped up in the last 20 years. I mean, it's just amazing. And I understand everything my colleagues have said about this area, and I agree with them. I don't believe you should continue to put more development, especially on Oka Lane. It's already takes forever to get in and out of that neighborhood, and there are more and more kids there. So it's very, very dangerous for people to live there. Their safety is at risk every day if they need to get out, or somebody even needs to come in. I'm scared if something happens to my dog or any of my neighbors that the police or the ambulance can't even make it on time, much less if there's an actual issue like there has been at the JCC. Twice we've had a bomb threat in the last 10 years. I couldn't get home. I didn't know if my daughter was safe. I didn't know anything. That's pretty scary. I don't know if any of you guys live there, but I really think you guys should start trying to drive through there at 8 o'clock in the morning between 7:30 and 9 and try to get in and out at 5 o'clock at night. It's not fun. And especially it's actually ramped up incredibly since we put down the development on Lark. and Bascom, and you're going to put more houses in there, it's going to get worse. So I really agree with what everybody said here. Now, I don't know how any of this works, but I'd like to know who makes these decisions. It doesn't sound like you give any answers here, you just take comments. But I'd like to be participating in the process on how the decision gets made and how it can be overturned, okay? And how we can defend the area. And I do believe it's in the best interest in all of Los Gatos, because we shouldn't turn this into a town that's ugly and congested. It already is a little congested, and that chases people away from coming and visiting this beautiful town. So we should really consider this. I don't know if somebody's feathering their pockets or why we're doing this. I don't believe we have a density issue because there are all these high density areas going up around town, but this certainly isn't the right location on Oka Lane to add more high density, because there is only one way in and one way out. And that really is sad if you're going to go and approve this at the risk of all the people in the 75 homes behind at the end of Oka, plus all the people who live in the park right there and all the people who live across from the JCC in that apartment building. Thank you. And I expect somebody to give me an email or a phone call to let me know how I can participate in this process moving forward.
Okay, I'm going to say something about that right now so that you understand. Verbal communications is an opportunity to talk about things that are not on the current night's agenda. However, there are other opportunities to provide comments about future items. And so there is the opportunity to comment on developments that are on the town website, and there is, I believe, a development that's there, and you're welcome to send those in advance of any meeting being scheduled. I'm not aware of a meeting being scheduled on that particular development yet, but there will be opportunity to make specific comments on that opportunity, on that development as we get closer to having a hearing on it. So I appreciate your coming forward, and you're welcome to come forward at other verbal communications, but also there's an opportunity to send written comments in.
So are you going to bring the comments that I brought up about Oak Lane development and some other of my comrades here to whenever that is? Because I don't know if I'm going to be here. I don't know when these things happen. And I'm not trolling your website 24/7. It's very complicated. I don't know how these things work. I can't even understand this agenda and what you guys approved today. So getting some clarity on some of these really simple questions: who's doing it, why are they doing it, what's the timeline, things like that. Something really simple that the simple person like me can read and understand and go and get good feedback on. That would be helpful. But
Yes,
right now
you.
it feels like just a big murky pond.
Thank you.
Almost
And-
as bad
and
as the traffic right now.
I would just point out that we also approved a notification policy, which is something new, that within folks who live within 1,000 feet of a proposed development will be notified with the initial application and also when any hearing is coming up. So,
1,000 feet.
so thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
I have one more card. Leafa, go.
Thank you, and appreciate your comments just now on providing some clarity and direction for folks regarding this issue. And this development on Oka Road is similar to many of the others that are underway currently throughout the town. And it was because the town was not able to get its housing element approved where there were residential site locations that were specified where these where developments could occur, but nothing to the height. The maximum height that the council had approved was 45 feet and only in a few areas, including downtown. And these developments, although not the one on Oka Road, certainly exceed that. But the issue on Oka Road, I've driven around there just to explore the area. And as you've heard from a number of people tonight, one way in and out is dangerous. There are already more than enough housing in there and enough events going on that create real concerns. But also the infrastructure, the utility services. Even though there's a water purification plant close to the end of Oka Road, it does not access and does not provide an escape route for people. So I think one of the things that the council should do is to look at how to improve safety, work with Santa Clara County Fire, where they have a good overview of the safety issues, not just fire, but other safety issues, to help us put in some guidance so that we can better control these development proposals coming in, and ensure that there is enough safety for access, for parking, for all of the other issues. The utilities are going to be a big problem that we're going to see with these new developments. So please take action as a council, collectively and individually, to try to, yes, allow some new housing to come in, but reasonable locations, reasonable numbers, and reasonable design so that it doesn't so change the character of the town, put the safety of other citizens at risk, and cause the cost of living here to go through the roof. So thank you for your consideration on these issues.
Thank you. I see that we are increasing the number of cards that are coming in. I do want to state that our policy is that we will take verbal communications for 30 minutes before opening the rest of our agenda, and then any further comments will be taken after the close of the last item that we have. So I have a card from Romy Sklar. And then if we could check and see whether there are any online comments.
Traffic is horrible, but not alone left to be even more traffic. How sad is that? How too much traffic, also not let alone environmental concerns like this. How about the beautiful orchards, the animals roaming around freely? It's gonna destroy local orchards, wildlife, habitats, and the natural beauty of, let alone the traffic being bad and getting worse. We don't want that. Who wants that, honestly, But also these animals, these precious animals roaming, bad for the environment. And regarding the traffic, especially being, kids going to school and being a college student going to college, and it's already building too much homes. It's going to look ugly, the house, and it's going to, Los Gatos is such a nice small town. We don't want to build even more traffic. So and all the animals, and then bad for the environment, all these houses and everything. And it's really sad. It's really sad. And I'm very appalled by this idea personally, and other people around me. Yes, and who wants even more traffic, honestly? It's just not fun, especially for college students like me going to college being late. I don't want to be late, It's not fun. It's not just also not fun. It's also, it doesn't look good. It doesn't make the town look good. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for coming forward. That was the last card. I think we have someone online.
There are 3 speakers on Zoom.
Okay.
Bala?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, yes. I think I pretty much want to echo most of the others' concern. I live down Oka Road. Clearly, it's a significantly a big concern on the single entry and exit to this whole community here, right? We have probably, hundreds of houses already, and we are going to add another 140 houses. That is, and yeah, it's a absolute safety hazard. That's one thing. And also I wanted to raise the concern about having a single lane, and if there is any study and analysis done on the impact of the traffic by adding 140 more units, and how much it's going to increase the traffic on a single lane. That's all we got on Oka Road, right? One lane on each side. So that's essentially what I wanted to raise. I think we should be given answers to these significant concerns. I would hope the town would take these matters seriously and provide us with answers. And that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
Jim?
Yes, this is Jim, and I'd like to echo what the other speakers have said about the Oka development. I'd just like the council to bear in mind one point at this moment in time, and then we'll address this during the planning council hearings and so forth. But when I was going through the documents for the developments that are in response to the builder's remedy law, I was very disappointed to see that these developments can take place without regard to the town ordinances or regulations. I thought that that's a very extreme impact of the builder's remedy law, and I think we're going to have to talk to our state senators and state assembly people to rectify that. But in the meantime, here, and especially for the Oka development, I want the council and the planners to realize that if not the town ordinances, keep in mind the strategic priorities, which were just agreed to by the town council recently. And a key strategic priority is environmental safety. And you just heard from many of the speakers tonight how dangerous we currently are in the Oka Road situation, since we just have the one road for entrance and egress. But if we had 138 townhomes, how very much worse that would be. And we have to talk about alternatives to for housing, but I really want the council to bear in mind that in violation of a strategic priority, I think that's enough legal basis to restrain this particular development. Thank you.
Could I add one more thing?
Thank you.
A minute?
Next speaker.
Svetlana?
Don't hear anything.
It looks like she's unmuted, but we can't hear her.
Okay. Well, we'll move on then. So we'll close.
There's one more speaker.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Charlene and Ian.
Go ahead.
It looks like they're unmuted as well, but we still can't hear them.
Okay. Was that our last speaker?
Jim raised his hand, but he's already spoken. And just the two that we can't hear.
Okay. Well, like I said, we will have opportunity to take public comment at verbal communications at our next council meeting. So, and written communications are welcomed as well. And my understanding is that communications about a specific project will be part of that project package when it comes forward to the Planning Commission and to the council. So we're going to close verbal communications and move on to item 12, which is the Parks and Sustainability Commission recommended work plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Nicole is online on Zoom, and she'll be doing the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a brief presentation at its regularly scheduled February 3rd council meeting or Parks and Sustainability Commission meeting, the Parks and Sustainability Commission heard an item regarding work plan for the 2025 year and took action. That action is included in your packet as attachment 1. It includes 4 concrete items and 5 in the 5th one that is kind of an ad hoc giving feedback on capital improvement plans, particularly one that may pertain to master planning should that get funded in the next fiscal year as we move through the budget process. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or hear any feedback on that work plan.
Questions from council members? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just one quick question. Did the Parks and Sustainability Commission talk at all about the how they're planning on sort of integrating sustainability into their work for the new year?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. It was great question. Yes, they did. It was discussed, particularly our newest member asked that question. And at this moment, or at that moment that evening, we didn't have a concrete answer for what that work plan items might look like. So we were going to go back and give that some more thought and revisit that topic at a future meeting.
Okay, great. I fully support that and think it's an important and exciting aspect of the commission.
Thank you. Other council members? Councilmember Risto.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Burnham. I think these are really great priorities. When I was looking through those, one is clearly it's somewhat overdue to look at the field use policies. We're starting to hear from a variety of groups and, the mode that we had before where certain clubs or groups kind of took care of the fields does not then allow us to address new groups. So I appreciate them looking at that. My understanding is the Adopt a Bench program was put on hold. So is this work plan to figure out how to move forward with it? And then once that's figured out, will the Adopt a Bench program either be discontinued or continued?
Yes, that's exactly what that work plan item is. It's for staff to evaluate how that program has been operating in the past and identify potential improvements and develop some policies around that and bring it forward. Our hope is to continue the program.
Okay, thank you. And then my third thought was on the Adopt a Planter program, which I realize probably needs a refresh. Is there a lens toward looking toward encouraging native plants or, weaving in the sustainability with what kind of plants are in the planters?
I definitely think there could be, and we have not gotten that far yet in looking at that program, but I think that definitely could be one option on the table.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I had a question. It was interested whether the Parks and Sustainability Commission considered the community garden project at all, and whether they explored that as a potential for the work plan, or is that contained in item 5, which refers to the capital improvement program, as that was, I know that's something that work had started on that, and it was done in conjunction with a walking path as well.
Yes, they did ask about that, and we regularly at our meetings provide updates on the status of capital projects, including that one. And so we will continue to discuss that project with that commission under item 5 in the work plan.
Okay, so there was no work that they saw for themselves on that project this year?
They did not.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So I'm going to open this for public comment. I don't have any cards here. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to comment?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Council members have comments or motion. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, just one other quick comment. The timing of this item was rather serendipitous. I received a very thoughtful and I've received a few thoughtful communications about e-bikes from a resident who's super concerned and has kind of outlined a variety of different issues that have happened with e-bikes. And I see the Parks and Sustainability Commission looking at this topic of e-bikes and potential regulations and the best ways to go about both recognizing e-bikes as an important alternative form of transportation, but also recognizing that people can be rather reckless on them. And so I'm super supportive of the Parks and Sustainability Commission addressing e-bikes, and I think this is sort of the first step for the town, commissions and council to look at this, and I think there's going to be a lot more conversations to come on the topic of e-bikes. So I'm glad to see that on here.
Any other comments on that? Councilmember Risto.
Actually, seeing no comments, I'll move to approve the 2025 work plan recommended by the Town Parks and Sustainability Commission.
Councilmember Badami.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes. Thank you to the staff supporting that commission, and thank you to the commission for their work on this. So now we will move to item number 13, which is the to authorize the town manager to execute a pass-through agreement with CSG Incorporated.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Gary Heap. I'm with the Public Works Department. I'm just going to give a brief summary of the staff report for this evening for both you and the public. So this again is item number 13, the CSG pass-through agreements request for council action. As you know, land development projects have been coming in significantly over the past several years. And consistently, we've only had 2 public works engineers to manage and deal with those plan reviews. To maintain the quality of our reviews and also to maintain a high level of customer service, we need staff augmentation to help support us with that. Therefore, the Parks and Public Works Department is requesting that we enter into an agreement with CSG for plan review and inspection services. So a little background on how we selected CSG. In late 2023, the town issued an RFQ to establish an on-call list for engineering services to provide needs like this for the department. The town council approved that on-call list in February of 2024, and that list established 6 on-call engineering firms that can provide this land development review and inspection services for the town. Staff requested proposals from 6 of these 6 firms, and CSG was the only one that actually responded, saying that they had availability to provide that augmentation. Therefore, we're moving forward with CSG. Funding for CSG reviews of the inspection and plan review of these large projects will be paid for by developers that will be submitting funds, and will be putting that into pass-through accounts. For smaller projects of less than 9 units, CSG would be funded through regular permit fees collected from those developers. Now, it should be noted that item 15 on the agenda this evening is an update to the town council's comprehensive fee schedule. There are new items in that update that allow for Public Works to fund these third-party plan reviews. Should item 15 not be approved this evening and the council approve this item, staff will not request that the town manager execute this CSG agreement until that fee amendment is approved. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Great, thank you. Questions from council? Okay, I'll open public comment. Do we have anyone on Zoom who wants to comment on this item?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
We have someone coming forward on this?
One question. One person responded to the bids out of 6 people. Is that what I just heard?
Thank you. That's a question actually that I plan on asking staff when we close public comment. So thank you for that. Okay, no other public comment. Then we'll move on to questions from council. Councilmember Risto.
Yes, and it might dovetail with your question, but one question I have is, Is this the first time the town has contracted this out? My understanding was, for example, the North 40 was such a big project that we contracted a lot out from different departments.
Yes, for Parks and Public Works, we did contract out the inspection services for the North 40 project with CSG.
Same
firm.
Thank you.
If I could maybe follow on to that, do we have an idea about why we only received one bid on this? Was there feedback from the other potential bidders?
It is very busy out there in the development world, and none of the other consultant firms had staff that were available to assist us. CSG was the only one that responded saying they had availability.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? I had one other question, and that's how does this fit with our budget? And since we are doing pass-through, is it going to be fully compensated, do we think?
The pass-through will be fully compensated, and we'll be doing that for large projects. And so we'll be collecting a deposit and charging directly for, through those pass-through accounts for this work by CSG. We do estimate that there are some smaller projects that we'd also like to farm out. We're going to try and maintain some of them in-house. But for those smaller ones, we're going to be using basically the fees that we're going to be collecting from those developers that they would typically pay the town for those services.
And if I could follow up, what would the process be if we were not recovering all of the expenses?
By our
how would the council know that we might have a budget issue?
Well, we're only authorizing, I think, with this agreement up to $150,000 for staff augmentation that's outside the pass-through account. And we do, through our evaluations, believe that we are going to be bringing in at least that much more and then some in revenue for, in land development fees above and beyond normal staff costs.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to flag that as something to follow up for the council agenda, is to understand as we have all of these developments, not just in Parks and Public Works, but certainly in other departments as well, there are expenses associated with them. And so I would be interested in knowing at the earliest possible moment whether we think that we're going to be spending more than what is coming in, or what do we do if we take in more than we spend on these items as well. So, oh, Finance Director, yes.
Thank you very much. Gita Youngbari, Finance Director. So the town has a mechanism for dealing with developer deposits, and we set aside the money we usually collect ahead of time. This deposit, and we charge out either the staff cost or the contract cost if you use an outside consultant. And when we close the project, we refund the money. So we have a setup mechanism to track these expenses. And it happened in the past that we ran out of the money, so we had to go back to the developer and ask for more money. And as there is no the budgeting impact is we still have to receive the revenue and spend the revenue, so there is the budget adjustments requested, but it's really net zero effect on the bottom line. And we are tracking those collected revenues to make sure that it's covering expenses and go out for additional deposit if we went through with the expenses, especially with the bigger projects.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Any other questions? Okay. Further discussion by council? Anyone like to make a motion? Councilmember Risto?
Thank you. I forgot that we had taken public comment. Yeah, I move to authorize the town manager to execute a pass-through agreement with CSG Inc. for the review of land development entitlement applications and subsequent construction plan review and inspection services in amount not to exceed $500,000, and authorize revenue and expenditure budget adjustments the amount of $150,000 to recognize deposits, Program 5999, and permit revenue, Program 5202, and associated expenditures for CSG services.
Have a second? Vice Mayor?
Second.
Any further questions or comments? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you for that. And we now move on to item number 14, which is the mid-year report and 5-year review.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Gitta Ungvari, Finance Director. The item in front of you to receive the fiscal year 2024-25 mid-year budget report, including the fiscal year 2024-25 year-end projection, authorize budget adjustment as recommended in the mid-year budget report, and receive the TON 5-year financial projection from 2025-26 through 2029-30. The purpose of the mid-year report, of it you can find attachment 1 of the staff report, are to provide the Town Council with the status of the adopted fiscal year 2024-25 operating budget after the first 6 months, and to make any adjustments to ensure the continuity of municipal services and operation for the remainder of the fiscal year. The updates primarily focus on the Town General Fund, and the update to the TON 5-year financial projection for the next 5 years gives context to the 2025-26 budget development process and recommended budget approach. As you know, this exercise starts with all the department going through all of their line items budget and carefully eliminate and see how they end up in the what they think about the projection for year-end, both revenues and expenditure. Finance compiles the data and present a summary form for the Town Council. The general fund expenditure totals are trending in accordance to which the adjusted budget, with total operating expenditures at the end of the second quarter at about 44% at the adjusted budget. As you recall we have two bigger reports, the mid-year report and the forecast. Both reports concentrate 75% of the revenues and the major revenues and probably as much expenditures as we are evaluating our cost. So from the staff report, those 4 economically sensitive revenue, property tax, TOT, sales tax, and business license tax, the trend for the next 5 years are either for trending lower, flat, or not growing as fast as we projected in the previous year. Compared to the 65% of our expenditure, which is our personal cost, it's significantly lower, significantly growing faster for 2 reasons. One of the some of the negotiated salaries that was approved up to 2016, and also the CalPERS, the pension benefit cost is increasing significantly faster than our revenues are increasing. In addition, department, as a standard item in the mid-year report, are requesting over $662,000 general fund revenue budget adjustment and a little bit over $1 million expenditure budget adjustment. The expenditure request exceeds the revenue request by $400,000. It is anticipated that we will have enough year-end saving, and that will be sufficient to cover the additional cost. I just want to focus on the 5-year forecast. The mid-year report provides the base for the 5-year forecast, and based on the current trend and or negotiated salaries, the forecast shows starting to show a $5 million deficit for the out years. So that it's very important, I just emphasize again that revenue projections are not keeping up pace with the rising cost, and future discussion for revenue capacity to match expenditures and service level will need to occur to address increases pressure on town finances, and this is what guide the 2025-26 budget process. It's important that we will develop and recommend a balanced budget and also address projected deficits. And in addition, I would like to add, and I know that the town manager will add to this as well, that this report was reviewed by the Finance Commission last Monday. The Finance Commission received the reports. They had some suggestion, which we explained in the staff report. It was more some typographical error that we corrected. The further staff review identified other errors that we highlighted in the department. They were all footing errors. And there were a lot of questions during the meeting regarding what the new development or additional development can bring to the town. And I know it's an interest for the council and also the Finance Commission. So we just, the Santa Clara Assessor Office is giving the town every quarter a report, and they usually provide a guideline. And 5 million property tax roll gross probably generates a little bit, almost $13,000 annual property tax for the town. So we just wanted to include this one just in the contents, just because of the question. And I just would like to give it to the town manager too. Thank you.
Thank you, Gita. Both our next year's budget for 2025 and 26, as well as the mid-year process, all begin at the same time. So I want to thank Gita, her staff, and all the department heads and their staff who have to work very diligently and quickly to put this information together. The point of the mid-year is an opportunity to reassess halfway through the year how our revenues are doing in comparison to the projections from the previous year, and to do the same things as we look at the expenditures to see how do we track and project how we're going to finish the year, and if there's areas that need additional resources, make the adjustments to put those resources in those areas. And then the 5-year projection is a tool. It's a tool that is never perfectly accurate. You're constantly updating and it's constantly changing, but it's a guide to guide us as to into the future, the next fiscal year, as well as the next 3 to 5 years. How do we adjust to the trends that we see, revenue and expenditures, to be able to provide all the services to the town? And what's really important here is as you look at that 5-year projection, which is page 445 in the PDF, you see significant deficits in the out years. We're legally required to have a structural, to have a balanced budget, but there's nothing that requires us to have a structurally balanced budget. And what does a structurally balanced budget mean to me? We generate a number of different, a certain amount of revenue, the largest share coming from property tax being our top one, and sales tax. And those resources every year are intended to cover the annual expenditures, of which the majority of them are people. And of the people, the majority of the cost, when you look department by department, ends up being the police department. When you subtract the revenue minus the expenditures, this is the ongoing component generally. And then you have the use of reserves, where we, for a number of years, have set aside money with an intended plan for where we're going to use those, as well as reserves that are utilized where the revenues we have received this year aren't sufficient to cover the expenses for the year, and then we draw those out of reserves. As you see over the course of time, we're dwindling the reserves. They're starting to, year after year, become smaller and smaller balances. And so over the course of the last number of years, the council and the town has been very diligent to put money away into the reserves. But as expenses are growing greater than revenues, as we take on capital and other projects that we had planned on doing and desire to do and have added, we're seeing that we're drawing less and less in the reserves, which over the course of the next 3 to 5 years are going to necessitate some significant realignment and rethinking about what do we want to provide over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, how are we going to do it, and what are the expectations of the resources to support those. And so while you can look at the 5-year projection and be alarmist at it, we're not at critical. We have an opportunity to think about, discuss, and adjust in a thoughtful manner. This is why the strategic priority session that the council had last week and the priorities that you approved at this meeting are so important. It allows us to start going down the path of first focusing on high-level strategy of where we want to go, and then to start to align our operations, our budgetary decisions, our decisions we make at every council meeting to those strategic priorities, and to help provide transparency to the public and engagement in deciding on what do we do going forward to address this, what will be an ongoing structural deficit. And so there will be more to come on this. We will have discussions about capital projects. We will be talking about tactical and action plans related to our strategic priorities. But as I look to what we will do over the course of the next year, I am realigning and putting resources where the council has its top strategic priorities, and then looking at what action steps we need to take to start shoring up our longer-term fiscal condition. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council members, sort of clarifying questions before I open to the public? Okay. So I don't have any cards on this topic. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. I'll go back to the council then. Any questions for staff on this before we move to a motion? Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So one of the things that the Finance Commission talked about in their meeting was, the need to get our arms around our financial situation in a holistic manner, and this is something that you as the town manager have talked a lot about. Can you just talk at a high level? I know we're not there yet, but can you talk a little bit about how you see us going about that, sort of a little bit of the timeline? Because I think what you're talking about in the 5-year is going to be predicated on our understanding of our finances.
Councilmember, thank you for that question. We've already set our strategic priorities in motion. And so we will have this discussion about how do we plan, how do we think about what we're going to fund and go forward. And that's going to be one track that we're going down. In terms of our finances, we have the experience to put together projections and to do financial condition assessments, and we're going to work to do that. However, in my experience in the number of towns that I've worked in, there's a need, especially if you're heading into choppy waters where you're making really difficult decisions, to ensure that the public has faith in the numbers that you have and faith in where you're going. And so bringing in experts that do this type of work to help put that together so that we can present to the public and to the council a very transparent presentation of where we are and where we're potentially going, I think is absolutely crucial. And that's something that we're planning on doing during the course of this calendar year. And so I think that's another track where we're looking at the numbers, how we present them so that the public understands, I know what I'm getting. And that means on the revenue side, understand how much comes in. So for example, we're $1 million of assessed valuation, where a taxpayer pays a tremendous amount of taxes on that $1 million. Only $930 on average come to the town for use of town resources on the base property tax. And that's a significant variance from what the taxpayer looks at and thinks, well, what do you mean you don't have enough money? I'm paying thousands of dollars in property tax, of which a very small share of it comes to us. So having an understanding on the revenue is very critically important. On the expenditure side, it's pretty common that how we present our expenditures in the budget don't necessarily align with functions and programs to fully understand the cost of the service we're actually providing. So we want to be able to get to where you know what a unit cost of a service is. What is a call for service in police cost? What are the trees cost and impact? What are our streets? And that's something over the next few years we're going to need to get a handle on, because it will also drive what decision makings we make on how we provide those services, so that at least we're competitive and that the value we give taxpayers is value as opposed to just a number that may be grossly expensive to provide when there's opportunities for efficiency. So a number of different fronts is where we're moving to ensure that what we provide is a good value to the taxpayer.
Helpful. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Rennie.
Thank you, Mayor. So on the 5-year forecast, what page is this? Says Exhibit B attached to attachment
445.
to. Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's correct. So that if I look at next year, the 25, 26, that's really then coming up soon, and the deficit projecting for next year is 5.6 million. So I realize 5-year forecasts, you don't really know what's happening, but next year is not that far off. Part of when I look at, why is there such a large gap, because we didn't have a large gap this year, there's a number of places where revenue is dropping, and I'm wondering, have we correlated a drop in costs also? So, for example, business license tax dropped from 2.8 to 2.5. Why do we think business license tax is going to be less next year?
Thank you for the question. For the particular in a business license tax, we had some late or payment that was crossing fiscal years. And if you look at the previous year, the 23-24, actual business license number was lower because we didn't got all the money. And the 25-26 is kind of sets a new base for the business license tax, and we on business license tax, or tax goes up approximately with CPI in certain areas. So we don't have new buildings, new areas. So we just base our business license based on our existing footprint in Los Gatos.
So the second one, licenses and permits, is dropping from 3.5 to 3.1. Why do we think that's going to drop?
The licenses and permits, it just depends on the activity, and this particular in 2024-25, we finally finished all the phase 1 building inspection for the North 40, and with the very same mechanism what we just discussed in the previous item, the building department set aside that building permit revenues to make sure that they augment the services for an outside contractor, and since this contract is closed, this was a general fund money we will fully recognize, so there is a one-time recognized revenue what we see. As the course of the fiscal year, the budget adjustment for mid-year augmented the planning revenue, $300,000 increase because based of the activity. And for example, if the new any new bigger phase of development comes fruition and the building permit is submitted, we will come back to council either at mid-year or year-end to change those projections.
So what that suggests is if there's a reduction in activity and thus revenue, there should be a reduction in costs. Is there an associated reduction on the cost side related to this?
So reduction in the cost side would be seen in the pass-through activity because some of the bigger development project augmented by using outside consultants. But at this time, since that revenue was general fund revenue, and we set aside the money until we paid all of our contracts, now we are fully recognized. So for that particular case, we didn't have an augmentation in services. The current that forecast is maintaining current level, the 24-25 level of staffing in the out of the 5 years of the forecast.
But shouldn't, we're not going to have cost recovery now. Shouldn't we be dropping staff level then if we're not going to have as much activity that brings in this revenue?
The way some of our functions are staffed is there a base number of staff, and then we augment additional service using contracts. And so as we reduce the demand because of development, we're generally focused on reducing the amount of work we're sending out to contractors. And since most of that work is on a real-time billing, where we collect a fee and then we start to deduct the cost of the consultants from that fee, we're receiving less revenue coming in, and then there's less expenditures to pay out. It's still a net zero. The level is not dropping to get below where the current staffing level is more than is necessary. The number of builder remedy and other projects that we have provides a significant pressure in terms of staff need to support that. In fact, a pressure that could lead to needing more staff that's full-time staff as opposed to contract services, but we're really trying to hold the line at this point.
So if any of those projects get approved next year, wouldn't there be revenue come in, and so this revenue number is going to be low?
So if any of the project gets approved, when we start to put it in the forecast, when the building permits are submitted, because until the building permit is submitted, there is no, we won't, usually we won't put any projections in to the forecast.
We do get application fees and when they're submitting, but Gita is correct in terms of the next tranche of a large amount of money that would come in is they're actually imminently looking at potentially building. And as we know, a number of those projects that are going through the pipeline, we don't necessarily know all those projects, what that timeline is. And then fast forward to when the certificate of occupancies are provided, then we're looking at the property tax, the base property tax of all the improvements. But for some of these developments, those are years out.
And if I move down the line to the item called town services, again, you've dropped the revenue from 7.3 to 6.6. So it's the same kind of question. You're assuming there's going to be less services provided that's going to generate revenue. Have we reduced our cost, or are we still providing services but now without pay?
So the town services would include the pass-through services, and we've seen some pass-through activities in the current year. The current year estimates show that number, and the forecast just keep those pass-through activities in the same level, but same revenue and same expenditure, so there is no net effect of the bottom line. But it's very likely if we start to see those activities, just what the budget adjustment that was approved in the previous item was approving revenue and expenditure budget for those increased activity that we see for the pass-through account.
But to go to your question, you're looking on the expenditure side. We're not contemplating at this point any reductions of full-time staff, which is a fixed cost, irrespective of what the activity levels are. We're not looking at a reduction on the benefit side of the equation. Those two together represent the super majority of the total cost that's here. Things that are being potentially reduced translate into things that we can tie the revenue to the expenses. That doesn't necessarily mean by the time we get to the end of the budget cycle and the budget we're presenting to council that there won't be some potential reductions. It's just at this point, they're not necessarily all built into the projection.
Well, so, that's kind of where I'm leading with this. You're showing a $5 million deficit. You're showing less services we're going to provide in a couple areas, but we're still incurring all the costs. Maybe we need to right-size our services if we're really not going to do the services that generate the income. You see my problem here? It looks like we've cut one side of the equation and not the other, and the pass-through argument isn't making any sense to me.
We also have to look at the fact that we're taking resources also out of reserves to fund activity and projects which we haven't looked at necessarily to retract. We can go, I know that the Finance Commission has wanted to become more precise on the revenue side. They had articulated, they were looking at the assumptions behind a number of the revenue projections and saw that historically, let's say for property tax, the increases year to year were larger than what we were projecting in the budget. And because we weren't tracking with those numbers, what we would end up projecting is deficits only to end the year with surpluses, which was frustrating to folks that, when you're not projecting more precisely, it impacts what level of service you can provide. So we did adjust those numbers with the recommendation, and what happened this last year is our projections look to be coming in below what those higher assumptions are. And so when I look at the totality of the picture, where I get really concerned is if our reserves aren't sufficient to cover variances in what we project for the end of the year, which would then put a lot of fiscal stress on the budget, which then result in us having to do cuts pretty dramatically and very quickly, which is not what we want to do, and it's not ideal. So when I look at this, I don't know if we're going to end up at 5.6 or 3 million, or even potentially getting closer to a very small variance between revenues and expenses. What I do know, though, is I don't like seeing these numbers. And as we go through the budget process, scrutinizing the requests and what we're doing in activity is important. However, what I do know is the total number of staff that we have, if we fully staffed every position in the town, we would have significant deficits because we cannot support all the number of staff with the budget numbers that we have before us. That's partly the reason why you see a 4.6% vacancy savings that the town put into place last year, is to try to capture that savings, which is really a plug to make up for the fact that we have a deficit. Yet we're still on a tear to try to hire more police officers. We're still in recruitments to hire a number of other vacancies throughout the town, in some cases successfully, in other cases not. But that is truly an area that we need to be looking at and determining, do we actually proceed in this with the speed that we're planning on?
Mr. Mayor, I have one other question that's a little bit different, and it maybe is not that relevant, but it's something that confused me. On page 393 of the packet, in where the discussion starts on the mid-year budget, the second paragraph says that through December 31st, 2025, we've pre-authorized $1.7 million in reserve funds to cover salaries. I don't remember doing this, and it's an odd date. It doesn't match a fiscal year, and I don't think it matches our dates of our agreements with our labor unions. And normally in the past we have authorized for the rest of the fiscal year to cover that, and then we figure out the years after that. So it looks really odd to me.
So thank you for the question, and I don't have in front of me all the details, but those agreement, only the POA agreement was approved during when we developed the budget, and that POA agreement was included in the fiscal year 2024-25 proposed budget. The other agreement were approved, I believe, in August, and some of them later, the town manager agreement, and the TA, the management, the confidential, the FSME agreement, the budget adjustment for the effect of the 24-25 fiscal year came as a budget adjustment during the fiscal year.
I understand your point. The council authorized 3-year increases to all the bargaining groups, and those are commitments that we made. And will be reflected in the budget. So I think the terminology isn't very clear. You still have to approve the budget every year, even though we've made those commitments. Those are commitments we have. Until those commitments are not commitments. What's really important about that paragraph, and I'm glad you pointed it out, is parse what's being stated. We're paying for increases in compensation out of reserves. We're not paying those increases out of ongoing revenue. We're paying out of reserves. This is a demonstration that the total revenue that we're receiving minus the total expenses aren't enough to stay positive and contribute to reserves and capital projects. We're working in the other direction. So you're right. Over the next few years, we have to change the direction. We have to relook at the services we're providing. We have to realign what is important and fund those, and what is next in the tier of importance, and really consider what level of service needs to be provided. And I can tell you, most towns don't have to necessarily deal with some of the difficult discussions that some of the towns that I've worked in. And for a town of Los Gatos, it's going to be a difficult road ahead.
So the 1.7 is not already included in the 5 million. It's basically saying that's part of how we're going to close the $5 million gap.
So the $1.7 million, which refer to 2024-25, it's part of the 2025-24-25 projection. And with that reserve use, we assume that we have a surplus in this fiscal year.
And it does go halfway into next fiscal year.
So if whatever budget saving we have, if we are not fully, because that budget adjustment assume that we are fully staffed. So if we have any savings, that will be part of or goes into our fund balance. But as you said, the next year it's already built on in salary costs, built on the current year increases, and built in the next year increases. All the cumulative effect is already built in to that $5 million. Yes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Having listened to the discussion at the Finance Commission about this, and basically understanding that we are projecting a more significant deficit in 5-year than we've seen the last times we've done the 5-year. When sort of traditionally, when we do the 5-year, there's a deficit that's projected, and then things get better at the end of the year when we do our final. How does this 5-year compare to the last couple of 5 years that we've looked at? Is the $5 million and the factors behind it, is that similar or is it much greater? How does this compare to the last couple of 5 years?
So this 5-year, how it compares, I would just pull the last couple of them because we used to have surpluses, so we didn't have deposit maybe 6-7 years ago. So it's just a higher. We were around $2-3 million in the past. And in the past, we also didn't have the salary saving factors built in because we just started to do it 2 years ago. It just, so I think it's more significant. It's very rarely that we have 3 years of salary agreement are approved ahead of time. So we see all the full effect of those agreements. In the past, maybe we started to put in salary increases, increases in the forecast 5 years ago. It wasn't even part of the forecast. So I think we changed our methodology significantly. We fine-tuned lots of area. I just want to point out that I know there is a question, this is what we are projecting. Last, the mid-year and the budget, we projected general fund revenue balance a little bit over $28 million. We ended up with $31 million because we had a GASB adjusting entry for interest market update 1.7. The difference in or projected fund balance and the final fund balance was $800,000. So not a significant or difference that really takes us away. And then when we build in all the reserve uses and the transfer in and transfer out, then really the real picture how our general fund balance grows or decreasing. And but it's just want to say it's a more significant number that we used to see in the past.
Yeah, thank you. And this is more of a comment than a question, but what's different in the next 5 years over the last 5 years? Well, one major thing that's different is the amount of development. In the last 5 years, we had one major project that accounted for a few hundred units, and now we have applications under Builder's Remedy. The folks were speaking about Oka Road, the number of units, and multiplied by all the other number of developments under SB 330 and Builder's Remedy. And it strikes me that there's a possible issue that Councilmember Rennie raised that is really going to be magnified by the amount of development. And so I think it's very important that we not only look at the numbers that we're seeing, but also essentially do the fiscal impact analysis of development that was recommended that we do as part of the general plan, but to do that with the pipeline of projects that we have, because the possibility of us reaching a tipping point on infrastructure where we have to spend more than we're getting in developer fees is, I think, quite high given the volume. We always say that we recover fees based on the development and the permits and the fees that come in, but sometimes you reach a tipping point in your infrastructure where you can't tie that back to a specific development, but it's the cumulative effect of 4 or 6 or 8 developments that have been approved, and then all of a sudden your water system doesn't work, your sewer system doesn't work, your streets are producing something that's completely unacceptable. And so I think that as we look to do further analysis, that methodology that was proposed for the fiscal impact analysis be incorporated, but tailored to the actual pipeline that we have. We have a lot more understanding. And so again, it's a comment, it's not a question, but if there's a response to that, I'd appreciate that.
No, I agree. Over the course of the 5-year projection, yes, we should be integrating what we believe is going to happen on the development side. I think the really important message here to note is for us to be very careful where we invest our resources and very thoughtful in terms of if we're changing to right size and so to be based on the revenue supporting our ongoing expenses, really prioritize what's important. It is not sexy to replace underground infrastructure, right? It's not sexy to improve the civic center plot, things that we need to deal with in this building. It doesn't result in a new service. It doesn't provide a new amenity. And it's not something that the taxpayer and the public sees physically, but it's something that's absolutely necessary. And in most cities, the lion's share of them, I see very few of them that do not have a significant amount of deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed, that we defer and continue to defer because we're focused on more and more new shiny things instead of focusing on the foundation and the basics. And so that's something as a town that we need to come to grips with, that we need to take care of our foundation and then the rest and build the strong house on top of that foundation and focus on the basics, not everything.
Other comments? Okay, Councilmember Isto.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, these numbers make us take a look. It's real. We know that we've had deferred maintenance. We know that we've constantly seen the cost of our services, which our employees go up faster than our revenue. And so I think it's really important to be able to put these numbers out. One thing I've been uncomfortable with, which at least the numbers are added back, is the 4.6% salary and benefit savings, because that's kind of an artificial thing. I realize that the Finance Commission was concerned that we typically don't hire up to our full amount. However, as long as we have recs open and at any given time when we're trying to recruit, I really feel much more comfortable budgeting for 100% because we could achieve that, and even if we haven't. So looking at what full employment would look like and what kind of services those would be, as we start to look at what adjustments we have to make, can we be more efficient? What services would we not be able to provide if we have to make up this deficit? Or if we get our numbers solid and we can tell the story to the public, then our public will have to understand what could be at risk or what our priorities are and what won't be covered. And then if it looks like we have to go forward with a revenue enhancement measure in the future, there will be an understanding of what that could pay for or what we would have to give up. And so, from that perspective, if our community decides we don't want to give anything up, they'll have to decide what they want to pay for it. But I do think that with these numbers, we can have a very serious look at where do we invest, how do we move forward, and how do we implement our priorities and take these steps. So I appreciate that.
I had one other thing I wanted to bring up, which really has been emerging this year, and that is the impact of federal funding for programs. We had a presentation from the county executive at the Cities Association meeting, and it was frightening in terms of the potential cuts to the county budget. And some of those cuts are in areas like healthcare and operating the hospitals and things like that. If those cuts happen, then the county will be probably cutting off a lot of other grants that we get. So I agree very much with the Vice Mayor's proposal for us to look at the impact of potential federal funding changes, particularly in this fiscal year, so that we understand not only the direct grants that we're getting from the federal government that might be impacted, but also the indirect money that we get through the county that could be impacted. And I think that, with our strategic priority, number one on wildfire and emergency preparation, that one is one of the ones that's at highest risk of being defunded, since $2 million of that comes from the federal government in the forms of a grant, and there are other amounts that come through the county, and I think that's one of the areas that we have affirmed as a strategic priority. So I'm looking forward to scheduling that session in March to understand the impact of changes in the federal government on our financial situation. Obviously, can't put that into our 5-year. We need to pass the 5-year and the budget adjustments, but we absolutely need to be looking at those potential impacts and having a session offline from the budget where we can understand what are the potential financial impacts, because it could very well lead to much more impacts than we have anticipated at this point. So, Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mary. I'll just touch on that real quickly. I think it'll be important. I can agree with you completely. We have to look at how the federal funding bleeds down to the states, bleeds down to the county. And the county is, well, incredibly financially robust, having approximately a $12 billion budget. Their reserves are something in the ballpark of 1%. Which is, very different than our financial situation, luckily, but it's still, and when you're talking about, $12 billion, that's still, millions and millions of dollars, but it's very quickly, I think the situation could change, and the federal and the county is already going forward with a number of lawsuits towards the federal government that will, hopefully remediate some of this, but if those go the other way, that could, produce even more sort of uncertainty. And so I agree completely, and I think I think it would be helpful to have to hear from folks at the county. They have a team of lawyers who are dealing with this, sort of daily now, and so I think this is an incredibly important piece of the pie on how we move forward.
So I think we've taken comments. Is the motion needed on this item?
Yes, we need a motion. Thank you.
Councilmember Badami.
All right, I've been pretty quiet, so I'll go ahead with the motion. I support staff's recommendation, so I move to receive the fiscal year 2023 through 2024 mid-year budget report, including the fiscal year 2024 through 2025 year-end projections per attachment 1. I move to authorize budget adjustments as recommended in the mid-year budget report. And I move to receive the town 5-year financial projection from fiscal year 2025 through 2026 to fiscal year 2029 through 2030 in attachment 2.
Vice Mayor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passed unanimously. Yes, let's do that now. We will take a 10-minute break. So be back at 8:53. Next item that we have is item 15, the fee schedule. And so if we could get a staff report on that, please.
Thank you very much again. Gitong Wari, Finance Director. The item in front of you adopt a resolution modifying the comprehensive fee schedule for fiscal year 2024-25, amending certain fees, rates, and charges for fiscal year 2024-25. The town financial policies require that that certain fees, rates, and charges for services will be maintained to allow full cost recovery based on actual cost to provide those services. Usually we bring the entire fee schedule to the town in the spring, and we are still going to do it, but as or some of our previous items today and as we discussed, we have certain development activity and permit activity what requires tag augmentation, and 3 of those fees are addressing that differences: the number to encroachment permit fees, entitlement application consultant plan review 10 plus units, and the building permit application consultant plan review and inspection services at 10 plus units building application. So it's important that we are able to utilize CSG services, the consultant services. We have to have this fee structure built in or fee schedule. One additional item that we are requesting with this resolution, the town approved effective January 3rd, 2025. The push cart ordinance was replaced by the sidewalk mending ordinance. So we are just updating the language, and the permit fee didn't change. So we wanted to bring those changes forward with this action. If the resolution get approved, that resolution is will be effective as today, February 18, when the resolution is signed. And that's staff presentation. We have town engineer here if you have any specific questions regarding those fees. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from council? Okay. Let's open to public comment. Do we have any folks on Zoom?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. I'll close public comment and go back to council for questions or comments on this. Okay, I did have a question. Did I hear correctly that this is going to come back to the council in the spring?
The full fee schedule will come back to the council in the spring because we are going currently through that process. It won't be a full fee cost study analysis because finance and the town doesn't have a capacity to do that. We are planning to do it next year, but we in the between fee studies we increase the fees by CPI and other factors if it's necessary. But we are planning to bring it either the second meeting of March or early April with all the changes.
So you say full fee schedule. Is that different than this?
So this is a full fee schedule that attached, but we only address that 4 items that we are talking. When we are bringing back, we are going to evaluate all the fees and at least increase by CPI.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Any comments? Councilmember Risto.
Nope, this seems pretty straightforward. So I'll make the motion. I move to approve a resolution modifying the comprehensive fee schedule for fiscal year 24-25, amending certain fees, rates, and charges for 24-25. And it's those 4 items that I don't think I have to read. Yeah.
No, you just have to read the resolution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, second. Do we have a second?
Second.
Vice Mayor? Okay. And so with that, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. And that brings us to the end of our normal items. And so we now have, I believe, council matters. And so we'll start with reports from council members. I think I'll start again with Councilmember Rennie, if you like, and then we'll just go down the line.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. On February 5th, I met with a member of the Complete Streets and Transportation Commission. On 2/6, I went to the VTA board meeting and received an award for my 8 years of serving as a board member or alternate there. On 2/6, I rushed back to speak at a CERT meet and greet about a story, and had my mom speak about a story of when the fire burned through their place in Santa Rosa when the Tubbs fire went through. On 2/12, I attended the General Plan Committee where we sent I forget was it AB or one of the the housing element implementation items on to Planning Commission. And later that evening, I attended the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board meeting where we basically approved an update to the Silicon Valley Clean Energy solar payment schedule, received a comprehensive report on overall program impacts, and listened to a report on the impacts of federal funding changes. The board also finished making board committee appointments for the year. I believe Councilmember Risto was appointed to Finance Commission for alternates are allowed to do that. And then on 2/13, I met with a member of the Los Gatos Thrives.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I met with the executive director and staff from West Valley Community Services to talk about their continued services to the town of Los Gatos. They are looking to do a lot more in Los Gatos in the next year, including potentially bringing a different version of their market, their mobile market, to our homeless residents in town, among other residents. I also attended the VTA board meeting where I was appointed to the Capital Program Committee, which evaluates VTA's many large infrastructure projects. I attended a meeting of the Finance Commission. I attended the Cities Association Legislative Action Committee, which talked about the priorities for the upcoming year. There was an activity that I believe the mayor participated in where committee members talked about their personal priorities and the priorities of their cities, and I think every single participant said that they care about disaster preparedness, which was, I think probably somewhat new. I don't know that every city would have said that, a year or 2 years ago, especially because a lot of those cities are not in as wildfire-prone areas as we are. So it was actually Los Gatos was talked about. Los Gatos and Saratoga and Cupertino were talked about a lot in that meeting. Not necessarily for good reason, but because we're all at such risk of wildfire. So that was good to know that that's a priority county-wide. I also held my council member community coffee where I talked about a variety of issues from development to roads to all kinds of fun things. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Councilmember Risto.
Easy for you to say. Thank you. Let's see. I had a lot of small informal meetings, but on the 6th I attended, there's a nearby resident who periodically holds something called Pizza and Policy, and County Supervisor Betty Wong was there to talk about her priorities for the year. She's newly elected along with Margaret Abe-Koga to the County Board of Supervisors, and one of her priorities is dealing with the impacts of the changes from the federal government and how to protect our residents. On the 10th, I met with a couple of residents who live at the end of Foster Road and Aztec Ridge to talk about to hear about their ideas for how to connect to dead-end roads and what the possibilities are. On the 10th, I attended the Finance Commission meeting to observe it, which was informative for tonight's discussion. On the 12th, along with Councilmember Badami, I attended the CDAC meeting where we heard about potential ideas for a lot split on Stormont. And following that, I was at the general plan meeting along with Councilmember Rennie, where we approved or recommended approval of implementation program AB, which would allow 100% affordable housing by right in mixed-use commercial and restricted commercial highway, and that will be going to the Planning Commission and then ultimately the Town Council. On the 12th, I attended by Zoom the Silicon Valley Clean Energy meeting as I'm the alternate for Councilmember Rennie, and was appointed to the 2025 Finance and Administration Committee. On the 13th, I attended the VTA Policy Advisory Committee meeting as a representative of the town of Los Gatos, and the primary program discussed there was Equitable VMT, the final report, and that was presented to staff of all the participating cities. People are really interested. It's a way to look at, as projects come over and they have to, as you look at a project and you have to try to look at how they can mitigate VMT, which is vehicle miles traveled, a project may not necessarily be able to resolve it in and of itself in that area. And so VTA is looking at putting together kind of a larger program where developers could either pick a program that VTA puts forward or pay into a pool where we can look at decreasing driving from land use developments across the jurisdictions. So it could be van pools, it could be e-bikes, it could be a lot of different things, but it might be give us an ability for some of the projects to pool together and make a difference in the region or locally. And on the 14th, I attended the orientation for Ride and Taste, which is a program put on by VTA, Los Gatos Thrives, and the, we have a bunch of people volunteering with it, but it's basically getting some of our seniors to learn how to use the bus, because this is a region where people aren't used to public transit, and it's an opportunity to learn how to get a Clipper card, use the bus, and go to lunch. And there were 8 of our older adults there that rode the bus, and hopefully they'll make it a new habit. Thank you.
Councilmember Badami.
Thank you, Mayor. On February 6th, I participated in a meeting of the West Valley Stormwater Authority, formerly known as the West Valley Clean Water Authority. The name change clarifies its focus on stormwater pollution prevention and reduced confusion with drinking water agencies. Later that same afternoon, I participated in a meeting of the West Valley Solid Waste Management Authority. On February 12th, I conversed with the chair of the Complete Streets and Transportation Commission to discuss priorities and the work plan for 2025. Later that day, I participated in a meeting of the Conceptual Development Advisory Committee as described by Councilmember Risto. And I've also met with members of the public regarding town matters relating to strategic priorities, financial status, and closed session agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you. Had a number of meetings as well this week, over the last 2 weeks. Met with Complete Streets and Transportation Commissioner. I met with the director of KCAT and heard some new ideas for engagement with the town, which I think would be interesting to pursue. I participated in the excellent CERT program with Councilmember Rennie's mother telling a very compelling story. I think that really woke people up to the reality and helped to the whole engagement between CERT and the town is just incredible, and our police department, the way they interact with CERT is really a model of how to do it. So I'm very encouraged about us being able to exercise that capability as we put together a serious new emergency operations plan. I met with, I signed up for a webinar on defending democracy and looked at how that related to local activities. And the following week, I participated on the 12th in being a judge at the Los Gatos Lions Club student speaker competition, and learned a tremendous amount about AI and whether it's a friend or foe, and they had some very interesting ideas about how to use AI. And then probably the most significant outside meeting that I had was on Thursday the 13th, where I alluded to the discussion that we had with the county executive, James Williams. And it was, first of all, he is a very incredible leader in terms of his capability and grasp of the issues that face us all in the county. And it was terrifying, the possible impact of seeing $3.7 billion potentially cut from their $12 billion budget, and the impact that that would have on healthcare and social services, and the reasoning why they are so concerned about the possible impact of those cuts. And so I hope when we do our session on federal funding, we're able to bring in a perspective from the county, because it has a direct impact on us. And I'm discussing this with our county supervisor, but also think that perhaps we could get some information from county staff as well to help us with that difficult area. Councilmember Risto talked about the Ride and Taste program. I got to experience that whole thing. It was terrific. And spend my afternoon with seniors who are exploring transit and some new opportunities to dine in Los Gatos. I met with another group on Jewish family services and other social services that are provided to us in town on the 14th, and the other meetings that were already mentioned. So it's been a very busy time, but also a time of understanding how wonderful our community is, and how accepting and neighborly and just welcoming community that we have, and the efforts that we need to make to continue for that to be that way. So that is the end of council matters. So perhaps town manager has some things to discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just shortly, the town council met on February 11th to discuss strategic priorities, with the approval occurring today. Thank you to the council for establishing those priorities that will guide our town's future. These priorities provide a clear framework for aligning our efforts and resources with our core goals, mission, and vision. By focusing on strategic initiatives with focused outcomes, we can improve decision-making and ensure that investment of our limited resources contributes to meaningful efforts towards what is important for our town and residents. I look forward to the continuing work which will implement these initiatives and build a more efficient and resilient community. And then lastly, I want to just close out our discussion of the budget priorities. It's very easy to identify all the things ahead that are very challenging and difficult that we must face, and put fear in our community and our employees about what the future holds. But I can say this, we will be okay. We're a strong, resilient community. There's nothing I think our community can't tackle if we come together, work together, listen to each other, and find the right direction to proceed forward. And I know with this council, we are definitely on the right path to get there. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of our meeting tonight. So we will adjourn the public meeting, and then we will re-adjourn. I'm sorry.
I'll just quickly
closed session
report what happened.
Yeah.
So with regard to the first closed session item, that was a discussion of existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9. And the closed session was authorized pursuant to subsection H of that code section. That discussion has been continued to Friday, February 21st. And with regard to the second two closed session items, one is a conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation. The other is an employee performance evaluation. Those closed session discussions will occur now, but I will return back to the chambers to report out any action after that closed session.
Thank you. I apologize for cutting you off on that. So this meeting is adjourned, and we will re-adjourn in closed session.